they measure your heart rate, and it's like, yeah, we want you to be at 70 beats a minute. We want you to be, but they just take that over a short period of time. And what we know now, though, is that the heart beats very irregularly by default. Okay, welcome back to the Healing Works podcast.
It's always like, how are we going to start?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, what's up? Hey, good afternoon, but it may be morning or evening too.
I know.
So,
Yes.
well, yeah, good to be back today. Excited to be here today. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence and emotional resilience. As we were prepping for this podcast, we wanted to focus on emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, and what that is, how it plays out, because we've mentioned it several times. A lot of people talk about emotional intelligence and emotional resilience, and it's, well, you got to be emotionally intelligent, or you got to increase your emotional resilience. And it's like, okay, well, what is that, and how do we do that? Right?
What does that even mean?
What does it even mean?
Mm-hmm.
What are you even talking about?
Cool. Now what?
That's great. So, you want to kick it off? What is emotional intelligence?
So we were just going to, give you the definition of emotional intelligence, but it's the ability to use and manage your own emotions in positive ways to, 1, relieve stress, 2, communicate effectively, 3, empathize with others, 4, overcome challenges, and 5, diffuse conflict.
Wow.
Those are very helpful tools or ways to handle really anything, any situation in your life.
So I like that, to be emotionally intelligent. What's that second one?
Relieve stress.
Relieve stress, right? We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Is stress is so the overreaching item, right? In life, is how do you combat stress? How do you get out of stress? How do you relieve stress? But what does it say? It's the relieving of stress to be emotionally intelligent.
It's the ability to manage your emotions in positive ways to relieve stress. So, and why? How does it relieve stress? Well, we know that emotions drive physiology. That's why emotions are so important.
Right.
That's why we focus so much more on that than thoughts or think positive or anything like that, because emotions are they drive everything. They drive the physiology in your body. So depending on your emotional state is going to depend on what's happening physiologically in your body. Are you in a state of survival and protection and defensiveness and downregulating your cells to survive in the moment? Or are you in a place of growth and expansion and creativity? And it's one or the other. And we've talked about that before, and we'll probably talk about it a million more times. Emotions drive your physiology, the way that you feel, the way that your body works, all your systems, your digestive system, your endocrine system, all of your whole body. So depending on your emotional state is going to depend on how you feel and how your body operates. That's why emotions are such a key part of your being.
And we'll probably talk about it 1,000,001 times, not just 1,000,000. But yeah, I mean, that's the basis. Is it's easy for anyone to say, hey, think positive, or you got to increase your emotional intelligence, or you got to be more emotionally resilient. And we say that too, but it goes a layer deeper than just, saying to somebody, be emotionally intelligent or have better emotionally resilient. You got to be emotionally resilient. Well, yeah, no kidding. How do I do that? And so it just goes, a couple layers deeper, where it's how do I become emotionally intelligent? And that's by retraining the nervous system, heart, and brain to be in a higher emotional state.
Well, it's the how and the why, because it's not just a matter of like, I'm either in control of my emotions or I'm not, and it's just the way that I am, or the way my mom or dad was, and you're either reactive or you're not. It really does come down to your overall health, your mental and emotional and physical well-being. So it does matter. It's everything.
Right. Because when we look at emotional resilience, when I say a layer deeper, it boils down to heart rate variability.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so heart rate variability, definition, oh, need more water today, but definition of heart rate variability is the beat to beat changes in your heart rate, in your heartbeats. The beat to beat variation, because no two heartbeats are the same. And it used to be thought that, by and large, physicians even, quite a long time ago though, but that it used to be thought up until recently that the heart beat like a metronome, steady beat. You go to your doctor and they take your heart rate.
Sits on the piano.
Yeah, that's a metronome. So yeah, very even heart rhythm, tick, tick, tick. And so you go to your physician, your doctor, and they measure your heart rate, and it's like, yeah, we want you to be at 70 beats a minute. We want you to be, but they just take that over a short period of time. And what we know now, though, is that the heart beats very irregularly by default because of how we've conditioned it, how we've taught it, and everything like that. But when the heart is out of rhythm, it's called an incoherent heart rhythm pattern, and your heart rhythm pattern generates a lot of things in your body, but mainly autonomic nervous system fluctuation. And so your heart rhythms and your HRV, or your heart rate variability, are largely determined on nervous system synchronization or the lack thereof. So when we look at emotions, because a lot of things affect heart rate variability, environment, thoughts,
past experience stuck in the nervous system.
Past experience stuck in the nervous system. But there's several factors that affect heart rate variability. But when the Heart Math Institute researched this back in the early 90s, they found that the thing that affected it the most was emotion and feeling. Same idea, a little different. A feeling is emotion in action, or the verb of emotion.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people are like, what are the difference between emotion and feeling? So feeling is emotion in action. But what do they have to do with each other? And that's what I love about the Heart Math information that you talk about, that you're certified in, is if you can learn how to manage your heart rate variability through a coherent state, you can manage your emotions. If you can manage your emotions, you can manage the way that you think and feel. If you can manage the way that you think and feel, you control your state of being.
And that's emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And that's emotional resilience. Is the ability to let things go on in your external environment not affect you, right?
Exactly.
The ability to have, someone hit your car, or your kids be upset, or your spouse or partner be upset, or, things not go exactly how you thought at work, or with a vacation, or with, whatever you're dealing with in the moment. Can you stay, we say, in your heart, because that's where heart rate variability comes from, right? But can you stay
in a state of alignment?
Right?
Yes.
And so we'll dive back into that, because, like I said, there's a couple things that affect your heart rate variability, and that could be breathing patterns, exercise, and thoughts. But then your emotions are what affect it the most, because when we look on a scale of energetics, thoughts are powerful, and everyone knows that your thoughts are powerful. We need our thoughts to start creating. But what's more powerful than a thought is an emotion on a frequency scale, right? We know that the heart is 100 times electrically stronger than the brain, and 5,000 times magnetically stronger. Now, a thought carries an electrical frequency. An emotion carries a magnetic frequency, and a magnetic frequency is a little stronger on an energetic scale than an electrical frequency, but you need them both. That's your electromagnetic frequency. And so
when you think about that, when you think about electrical, that's like the signal that goes out. So that's your thought, right?
Right.
But when you think about the magnetic, a magnet attracts. So when you look at how you think and how you feel, your thought sends that signal outward, and the emotion draws that vibrational match back to you. So when they say you are creating your life, like where you are, the situations that you're in, whether you like it or not, you've created it because it's a vibrational match. So when you send that signal out with a thought, what you're drawing back is that emotional match. So here's where it gets into, understanding vibration and frequency and magnetics is you're drawing back the experience that matches the emotional state you're in. Again, that's why managing your emotions is the key to a happy life, because you're sending that thought out electrically and it's finding a vibrational match to the emotion that's driving the thought. So if you think, I want a new job, but it is created because we create with a thought and an emotion or a feeling. If you think I want a new job, but it's coupled in fear or insecurity, you send that thought out, I want a new job, searching for that in the quantum field or the universe. I want more wealth, but if it's coupled with the emotion of fear or lack, you're actually finding that vibrational match and drawing that to you through your magnetic field. And that's why you keep attracting the vibrational match of the emotional state you're in.
Of fear, in that case.
Yes.
Well, and I don't know if we said this on a couple episodes ago when we talked about stress, but the biggest form of stress that exists in the world is what we induce upon ourselves. And that's thinking that I want more wealth or thinking that I should be happy, but feeling anxiety, right? Because those are out of alignment. Those contradict each other.
Yes.
And that contradiction is thinking that I'm happy, but feeling inadequate, insecure, anxious, depressed, frustrated, angry, that it hasn't happened yet. That's that contradictive state and living in conflict, literally.
Right, because
conflict between head and heart.
Exactly.
Conflict between mind and body. People call it mind and body. Really, it's physiologically head and heart, or mind and heart.
Yeah, because you're actually attracting your emotional state, but your thoughts are what you're aware of. And so you're thinking one thing, but attracting another, and it doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense. And then it's stressful, it induces stress because you can't identify what the disconnect is.
It's confusion.
Yeah.
Right.
But for those
sometimes you don't know it on a conscious level. It's not like, oh, I'm so confused. But the thought and the emotional state, the thought energy and the emotional energy are contradicting each other, but the emotion's going to win out 95% of the time. Most of the time, that emotion, your thought will not overpower that emotion. So that's why a lot of people say you can only accept, believe, and surrender to a thought congruent to your emotional state or equal to your emotional state. Because if I'm in a heart rate variability pattern of chaos, but that's going to be any negative emotion, which is going to be, fear, depression, anxiety, frustration. That is a very incoherent heart rhythm pattern. Maybe we'll put it up on the screen again. Probably should have sent it to Mal before this, but sometimes
you can send it after. She can.
But anyway, we showed that a couple episodes ago when Blake was on. The very incoherent heart rhythm pattern looks like a lot of jagged peaks, and that incoherent rhythm pattern, what it does is it causes nervous system imbalance. You can look at and we said this during the stress episode, but again, we'll repeat it, but your two branches of your ANS, or your autonomic nervous system, that controls 95% of your bodily functions, including influences heart rhythm pattern and brainwave states. But that nervous system, the two halves are sympathetic, and you can look at that as a gas pedal, fight or flight, or your parasympathetic, which is your brake, as in a car, or your rest and relaxation. But throughout the day, if you operated your car like we operate our body, constantly shifting from peace to stress, from frustration to peace,
or trying to run them at the same time.
You're going gas and brake at the same time. That's going to create a very jerky, very chaotic ride in the car. And that's not, over time, that's not going to be the greatest thing for your engine, your transmission. Like, your car wouldn't last very long.
It's a poor use of energy expenditure.
Right.
Yeah. There's a more efficient way to
uses a ton of energy.
Drive your vehicle.
Right. And so the heart rate variability pattern on frustration, impatience, anger, anxiety is going to be very chaotic, very, very jagged heart rhythm patterns or incoherent rhythm patterns. And under that, obviously back to the stress, that is stress. And so your body is shifting to that 1400 biochemical, neurochemical production of cortisol and adrenaline mainly, but that creates very high energy expenditure. You're tired at the end of the day. We had someone text us this morning, right? Mm-hmm. And said that I'm exhausted at the end of the day. Like, how do I get out of this? I have a lot of anxiety. I'm exhausted at the end of the day. And how do I get out of this? How we get out of that is, one, we remove those negative emotions that have accumulated on the nervous system, stress. Mm-hmm. And then two, we train our heart, nervous system, and mind or brain to be in a coherent state, right? Because it's such a huge difference. Mm-hmm. I made a pause there so you'd feel the effect.
Yeah, you can really feel that.
But it's such a huge difference because when you look at the difference between a low heart rate variability and heart rate variability also determines biological aging. Mm-hmm. And so when we're young, we have high heart rate variability because we haven't induced upon ourselves a ton of stress. Like Brooklyn at 5 years old can snap out of little tantrums really quickly, and all kids can, and their heart rate variability is extremely high. Like when she hooks up, and it's really cute, but she'll put on the heart rate variability monitor. Mm-hmm. It's called the Inner Balance Trainer. They're available on our website.
Yeah, we can link it in the show notes.
We can link it. It's available on our website. We can put the link in the show notes, but it's a heart rate variability monitor. And there's some out there like the Whoop or that sit on your wrist, or a ring and things like that. But the Inner Balance Trainer from HeartMath actually shows you heart rate variability real time in the moment. And so you clip it on your ear, your earlobe. Your earlobe is one of the best places to detect heart rate variability. A lot of people do it on their wrist. Wrist is a little more inaccurate. That's why your Apple Watches and such, it's a great technology, but not as accurate as the Inner Balance Trainer is going to be. But Brooklyn will put it on, clip it on her earlobe, and she'll start the app. Mm-hmm. And she'll sit there and do her heart focused breathing, and she gets really good scores at a very young age. Mm-hmm. But the point is that it's a trainable skill, a buildable skill. And what we have to do is first remove those emotions, because we find a lot of people can't get in as good of heart coherence and increase their heart rate variability when they have a lot of that stress or a la negative emotion trapped in their nervous system and their cells from past experience. And that's where, we use the emotion code, remove those, and then we train you to get into a higher heart rate variability. And heart rate variability in a heart coherent state looks like big, smooth wave patterns. Mm-hmm. Again, that graphic was on the past. If you didn't see that, we'll probably put the image or a link in the show notes as well. But it's a very harmonious signal. And that when we are in high heart rate variability, what happens is that's determined by, one, breathing patterns. That's why we induce it first with heart focused breathing. And then two, we select a different emotion with intention. So we feel gratitude and compassion and care and peace. And that creates such a different heart rhythm. And that in turn sends a very different neural signal through the nervous system to the brain. And that we get complete communication between the two halves of the nervous system. We get sympathetic and parasympathetic synchronization. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is you get higher brainwave capabilities. The brain becomes smarter every time we are in heart coherence. or in high heart rate variability. And then you also get a couple other systems in the body that come into complete synchronization and complete harmony. But first is that nervous system, which conducts, again, up to 95% of your bodily functions. And then you get your endocrine system that you referred to, or your hormonal output. So instead of producing negative hormones and stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, and the depleting chemicals that the body produces, you get the extreme production of DHEA, your main regenerative hormone, human growth hormone, dopamine, serotonin, and especially oxytocin from the heart at high levels. Oxytocin's one of the strongest. That's your love or bonding hormone. And then under that, it's you have complete operation, complete synchronization of the operation of your major body systems. So you're in complete alignment. That's that aligned state. It's not just, putting the hands, in front of your body in the aligned state, but it's the optimal balance between heart, mind, and emotional states, which then translates over to your complete harmonization of your physiological functions in the body, which then increases all of the good hormonal outputs like we just talked about. But then as well, when you get an increase in heart rate variability, you get an uptick in biological performance, and that biological aging slows down. The lower the heart rate variability, the more impact on biological aging. In fact,
well,
heart
you've
rate,
seen people who are under a lot of stress and they age quickly.
Yeah, right.
It's visible.
Yeah, because a couple things come into alignment with a coherent state, and that's going to be obviously heart rate variability, but respiration and blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, things aren't going to go very well for a sustained long period of time. In fact, that's going to start contributing to a lot of sickness, illness, and disease. But it's majorly that stress that's trapped in the nervous system that's producing those states, right? Well,
yeah. And when you break that down even further and why that matters, because, we are overall as healthy as our cells are, right? And we're made up of 50 to 70 trillion cells.
Right.
So if our cells are well, we are well. So how do you make sure the cells are well? Well, the cells are going to respond to their environment. What's their environment? Their environment is the chemicals in your blood. What are the chemicals in your blood? Are they the chemicals of stress or the chemicals of growth? So when you can learn how to manage your heart rate variability to release the hormones of growth so your cells are well, you are well. And that's why stress leads to sickness, illness, and disease, because you're constantly you're constantly releasing those chemicals of stress in the blood. The cells are responding to that and responding accordingly. Yep. So, and they've done so many studies of this showing the hormones of stress are so effective in closing up the cells, because, to know how 70 trillion cells operate, all you have to know is how one operates, right? And so they've done these studies where they will give people who are getting organ transplants, they will inject them with the hormones of stress, because it's so effective in making those cells shrink and move away from the toxin and shut down the immune system, that your body will not fight a foreign object by those stress hormones alone. So if it's that effective by putting in a foreign object in the body and making it not fight it, you can imagine why it's not fighting the pathogens that are in your body, like, bacterias and viruses, because that it's got a different response.
Right.
So your cells are not well, and when they've studied the cells in an environment with the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, the cells move away from the toxins and shrink down. It's like protection. It's like what you can imagine your body does in a stressful situation, and you hunker down and you tighten up. And the cells do the same thing with those hormones of stress. It's their signal to protect, as opposed to when they have a petri dish of cells and they put in the hormones of growth, the DHEA and the oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine. The cells move toward it and expand. So when we talk about being an expansion, your literal 70 trillion cells are expanding, which expand your field. Kevin always makes fun of me because I do that. Expand. But that's what I see.
I don't make fun.
It's like, it's like expansion. And you can't do that if you don't feel safe. That is the opposite of, if you're like, I'm unsafe, that's a really vulnerable place to be. So when you start to look at managing the cells by managing the chemicals in your blood, and you manage the chemicals in your blood by your heart rate variability and your emotional state, then it's like, oh, we don't have to go chase all the traumas. You don't have to go back and reconcile everything in the past. You don't have to do this dark work to identify all these traumas from your childhood. And if that's your thing, then that's your thing. I'm not, here to judge that, but I'm just saying this is such an effective tool that is so simple and so gentle. I feel like that it just changes your state. And if you're in a different state, then you feel better.
Right.
And you don't have to go back and make sense of all your childhood experiences. And then if you want to, because something keeps coming up, and we, that's what we do in our work. And that's what the emotion code and body code are fantastic for. It's like, okay, I'm trying to manage my state by doing this and this and this, and it's still not working. Okay, let's dig into that and find maybe some of those blocks that make that work faster.
Yeah.
And that's the power of these two tools together, and why we prefer it, to any other work out there really that we found so far, is remove the emotional blocks to get in a state of coherence, because the state of coherence is what the goal is anyway, no matter what kind of modality you're using to get there. That's the state you're looking for, because that is the state where you feel whole and you feel all is well, and that is where you are healing and expanding.
Well, it's the state we create from.
Exactly.
The coherent state not only creates new neurological networks and neural pathways in the brain and the heart, both neurological networks, because there's a neurological network in the heart too. Mm-hmm. I talked about that, but if you haven't heard that before, there is a neurological network in the heart, neurons in the heart that are very hypersensitive. Heart has its own intrinsic nervous system as well. And so when we create new neurological networks, what that does is that's our auto programming, right? That's our default. So the more elevated neurological networks or belief patterns we create, the better we operate. And so when we're operating in a high expanded state, we're creating in every moment. Mm-hmm. So if we're in anxiety a lot of the times, that emotional signature out to the universe, the quantum field, is going to pull back from the heart magnetic field more circumstances to reflect that anxiety. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up real quick, as you just talked about it, is we don't want to focus on the negativity from the past. Mm-hmm. We just want to simply identify those emotions that are trapped in the nervous system as stress, remove them, and not dwell on it, because we get what we focus on. So if we're always focusing on what happened to us in the past, it's going to be very difficult to create new neurological networks that suggest that we're focusing on new possibility in the present moment and in the future, right? Mm-hmm. And so we focus mostly on, okay, let's remove those. But what our focus is getting the heart into high heart rate variability and the heart coherent state to determine what we do want.
Right.
A lot of people focus on, well, I don't want to, have anxiety anymore. I don't want anxiety. Okay, but that focus is going to bring a lot more anxiety, because our energy goes where our attention goes, right? Our focus goes. Mm-hmm. And so, and none of it's, all of it's great. But we just think there's a little more effective and efficient way of simply removing that and then focusing mostly on installing new neurological networks under heart coherent meditation. And when I say meditation, maybe people are like, oh, I don't want to meditate. Heart coherent meditation is highly effective, and we see extreme results with 10 minutes. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
Apologies. Our Brooklyn needed the movie ended on the iPad. We usually don't have her here at the studio with us. Love to have her here, but she gets bored really quick. So she started opening the door like, Dad, the movie ended on my iPad. So
we had to break for a real life interruption.
Yeah, real world application. Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to we were talking about focus. Yeah, so we want to focus on the new possibilities. We don't want to focus on what happened in the past, the possible worries and anxieties that can happen in the future. We want to simply remove the emotions from the nervous system from past experience, so that opens us up to being in the present moment. And the best way to be in the present moment, or the most effective way to be in the present moment, is the heart coherent state, is doing your heart focused breathing, which is a very effective technique, which is 5 seconds in through the nose, 7 seconds out through the mouth breathing pattern. But we focus the attention in the area of the heart, and we envision and imagine that the breath is flowing in and out of the heart, because wherever our attention goes, our energy flows. So when we shift that energy to the heart by conscious rhythmic breathing, we get the heart rhythms to calm down, heart rate to calm down, and we can shift into a better emotional state, gratitude and appreciation, compassion, or care.
But remember, it's important to incorporate that emotional state, or that the getting in touch with that emotion, because there's a lot of breathing patterns out there that are for stress release, to calm down from, anxiety or panic attack. That's like, okay, now I'm calm. But shifting your emotional state is where the power lies. So it's important to be aware of that part of it, to not just calm the nervous system down and the breathing, your heart rate down, but then to shift your emotional state. That's the linchpin.
Well, we show that if, because we've heard, most people that are listening to this have probably heard that before by their mother or grandmother at some point. When you get hurt, it's, especially with younger kids, when they're, crying and they're not breathing, they take a big deep breath, and it's like, okay, breathe, honey, breathe. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that exists in our language, because breathing can calm and does calm the nervous system down. The difference is, if I'm in a high stressed out state, like let's say high anxiety, that's very common, panic attack, or people, anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow or whatever, but you're in a high anxious emotion in the moment. Heart rhythm patterns are very incoherent, very chaotic. Brainwave patterns, very, very out of whack, very chaotic. When you do some calm breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 4 seconds in, box breathing.
Different techniques.
What that does is that will calm down your breathing patterns by consciously breathing. Obviously, calm down when you're breathing. When you're in anxiety, let me back up. Your breathing pattern is going to be very, very quick breathing, because the heart's trying to get those neural signals to the brain. The brain's telling the cells that we're not okay, so that the respiration's very quick, so we can get the blood pumped out, to the extremities to get out of that situation.
To run or fight.
Run, fight, hide, freeze. But when we start breathing calmly, it's difficult for the body to be in fight or flight if we're breathing calmly. The difference is that the amplitude of that emotion, that frequency, goes from like high elevated anxiety, high frequency, and brings it down. We're calming it down. But unless we shift, we're still going to be in anxiety, just a lower magnitude or a lower frequency of anxiety. But we're still stuck in that anxiety. So heart focused breathing is the most effective, because we calm it down through the heart, and then we can make that shift. Mm-hmm. And when we make that shift, and it's a buildable skill, but the more you do it, the more you increase your heart rate variability, the less those stressors, and they're really called stressors. It's not stress, it's stressors in the environment, right? Those things that can cause stress if we allow them to. Mm-hmm. But the better our heart rate variability, the higher our heart rate variability, the quicker the response from the heart to shift in and out of incoherence to coherence. I mean, heart rate variability, you can look at it like a tennis player, right? Ready to take a serve. Mm-hmm. They're very fluid. They're moving back and forth as I'm moving back and forth in my chair, but they're very fluid and waiting for that serve. And if you watch tennis, they can adapt in the moment and shift their body and, get to that serve, unless it's, incredibly fast. Like I used to love Andy Roddick. Mm-hmm. Powerful serve. But anyway, I digress, because, but that's what we want to get the heart to, is high heart rate variability, so that the heart can shift and adapt in the moment. And A little back to heart rate variability, we talked about low heart rate variability or high heart rate variability when you're young. It progressively gets lower as you age, just by default biological aging. But we can increase heart rate variability at any time using just heart focused breathing, or especially an inner balance trainer to watch, everyone's coherent state's going to be different dependent on, each individual. But when we can really lock into that emotion, use our heart focused breathing to get our heart into a rhythm, and then feel that gratitude and compassion, appreciation and care, that's when the heart shifts into a high ordered heart coherent state by that emotion or that feeling, that emotion in action, that verb feeling. And so as we do that, when you look at the scale, if you have lower heart rate variability for your age group, what that signifies is there's going to be sickness, illness, and disease that's coming up real quick, because low heart rate variability equals the S word, stress, right? And so it's simply the building of the skill of having higher heart rate variability. So in the moment, emotional resilience equates to high heart rate variability, or high heart rate variability equates to emotional resilience. Does that knock us out of balance in the moment? Do we have enough heart rate variability and high heart rate variability so when someone comes up and yells at us, or something goes, not as planned at work, we're on the same page with that one, jinx. But can you stay in high heart rate variability? Can you be, okay, that's a little frustrating, but you know what? I'm going to pause, shift, and adapt, or pause, shift, and reset, and get out of that moment, because we don't want that production of cortisol and adrenaline to last for 7 to 12 hours. We want to stay in our imagination, which that's another thing that the heart coherent state does, is the more we're in the heart coherent state, the more it opens up our higher cognitive functions. And our higher cognitive functions out of the frontal cortex, a big one is imagination. A big one is attention and intention. So a lot of people, there's a lot of talk about intention around, a lot of people are talking about intention, be intentional. It's kind of the same thing with be emotional resilient, or be emotionally intelligent. Well, intention comes from the frontal cortex. If we're mainly under stress and we're frustrated and we're anxious, your intention isn't going to be very strong, because we're not using the part of the brain that allows that intention to be very powerful, right? That frontal cortex. And so the more we're in the heart coherent state, the better and stronger our intention's going to be. And all things are created from intention, thought, and elevated emotion.
Well, and being able to create, you've got to be able to look past what you can see. And when we're in stress, we have to rely on our senses, right? Like our physical senses, our physical body, because we've got to protect ourselves. And so we go to like what we can see, taste, touch, smell, hear. But because that's survival. But that intention, that creation, is being able to like see beyond what you can physically see.
Right.
So instead of reducing ourselves down to like what can we see and reacting to possible threats in our environment and scanning what you can see, like what's the threat coming at me, you can actually see past that and see to possibility of what you can create. But you can't do that if that front part of your brain is shut down, because you have switched that off because of the stress response. So again, managing that state is how you access that. So it's not just a word that's like, be intentional. It's like, okay, there's a formula to how you have to actually access that state.
Right. And it's through heart rate variability.
I mean, whether you know it or not.
Right. Right. It's through heart coherence.
That's what it is.
But a lot of people can't get into that state because of the amount of trapped emotions on that nervous system. Right. I mean, we talk to a lot of people. We do big groups of people, and with Razor Vibration, that'll be a larger group of people. But when you ask people, hey, what's your dream life look like? There's a lot of people that don't know, or like, I can't really imagine what it looks like because that frontal cortex has been shut down long enough with that stress.
Well, I don't know what it looks like.
I know what I don't want.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I really want, what my desire is, right? Because another thing that opens up and gets stronger with heart rate variability or heart coherence is intuition, right? The ability to sense things in your environment, that becomes stronger. Intention becomes stronger. And I heard one thing on in my scrolling through social media is I follow a lot of positive pages and such, but I don't know who said it, but I was listening to one of the videos, and this gentleman said, you have to go through life with intention because climbing a mountain doesn't happen by accident. And that's such a good point, is intention is purpose or being deliberate, right? The more intention we can place towards work, the more intention we can and purpose we can apply towards our relationship. How intentional are we with showing love and showing gratitude and showing care? How intentional are we, for me at the gym? How intentional, you can go to the gym and just go through, the phrases go through the motions. And will that do some good? Sure. But if I'm intentional and really focus on being deliberate with how I'm lifting the weight and how I'm training my body, that's going to have a higher, more effective and more efficient result than just, going through the motions.
I think it's garbage day to day. I've heard the garbage truck go by like 3 times.
Sorry.
I do hear the garbage truck.
It's okay. It's totally part of real life. Here we are.
Garbage truck woke us up this morning.
Yeah, 5-year-old coming in. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
We can roll with it.
Yeah.
Hey, we are practicing emotional resilience right now.
I wouldn't have even noticed.
Oh, really? I've heard it like 4 times now.
I mean, I would have heard it, but I would have just kept on keeping on. Keeping on.
Back to what you were saying about the gym is you can go to the gym every day and maintain it. We've all seen a lot of people that are like, man, you have been here every day for years and you don't look any different. Like, That's great that you're there and probably maintaining your health, right? And it's probably more maybe a routine thing or an escape, or maybe not an escape, but like part of your, maybe mental and emotional well-being. It's like you like to go there. But if you're wanting to transform your body and your body composition, you have to be intentional about that. There's got to be a plan. There's got to be, progressive overload. You've got to figure out your macros and be intentional about that. And those are the people that transform their body that you go, that is mastery.
Yes.
Right. It's not just maintaining.
Self-mastery.
Yeah. And so it's the same thing with emotional resilience and emotional intelligence. It's like there are people that, that get along and that, are maybe not in high anxiety anymore. Maybe there's the undercurrent of worry constantly, but they've figured out a way to maybe manage it to get by. But they aren't maybe creating the life that just drives them, that gives them so much, that they feel in alignment with their purpose and their passion. That's the mastery level, and it's a totally different state. And
purpose and passion comes from, again, heart rate variability or the heart, right? That's where your purpose is. That's where your authentic self lives. It's in the heart. What did you show me yesterday? You sent me a video yesterday that the guy said trauma is acting out of accordance with your authentic self. Yep. Right? No, that's spot on.
Yep.
And so, with being intentional, being intentional in every moment of life, that's where life is so rich, right? Because a lot of us go to these, we go watch the football game, our kids' football game or soccer game, or go to the gym or go to these places, and we're lamenting about stuff that happened yesterday, or worrying about and anxious about, paying the bills or the stuff that's going to happen tomorrow. And it takes us out of the present moment. And that's where we miss so many moments. So being intentional and training yourself to be in high heart rate variability and to be in a very heart-brain coherent state brings you to the present moment, and you're able to enjoy those things because yesterday doesn't matter and tomorrow hasn't happened. Well,
present focus, that is one of the signs of emotional intelligence is present focused.
Right.
Can you stay in the present moment because you're not, depressed about the past and you're not worried about the future?
Well, again, if you remove the emotions from the nervous system that's plaguing you and keeping you in the past and keeping you in stress, and stay out of but you remove the emotions from the past so you can forget the past. You remove that anxiety so you're not worried about the future. Then you teach yourself and train yourself with an inner balance trainer or just on your own. And that's what we do in Raise Your Vibration. So we'll teach you how to do this. And that's something you show up every week, and we keep teaching and teaching and teaching because it takes a minute to implement the skill, right? Mm-hmm. Or to improve the skill and implement it into daily life. When you do that and you have high heart rate variability, you're automatically in the present moment, which makes you, or you're automatically emotionally intelligent. And I don't know, I'm putting back emotionally intelligent. Yeah. Emotionally intelligent and emotionally resilient, which equates to and equals being in the present moment. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and a lot of times fearing the future is really fearing that the past is going to repeat itself. So they kind of go hand in hand. So when we can work on clearing those emotions that are trapped from the past, and you're not worried about something bad that's going to happen in the future because something bad happened in the past, it allows you to come back to really center in the present moment.
Well, Gal, that brings up the question is, can we predict the future? Well, if you look at your heart rate variability tracked over, 24 to 48 hours and even longer, you're going to see a pattern, right? Not only heart rate variability pattern, but you're going to see a pattern of how you operate and interact with life. Those emotions that you often feel, or your neural baseline, which is your most often repeated emotions, thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors, that will predict basically how life's going to go. Mm-hmm. And like you said, if you're constantly feeling emotions from the past, most of us do, about stuff that didn't go well, or resentments or frustrations or angers or depression, or, over certain circumstances or situations, or worry for the future and anxiety for the future, past or future, and not being in the present. But if you're constantly feeling those emotions that come up from the past, largely from trapped emotions that are in the subconscious, that's going to predict how most of your future days are going to go, right? Because that predicts your neural baseline, which, if you're feeling the same emotions, producing the same thoughts, which will produce the same attitudes and the same behaviors, and you're not increasing those or changing those, you're going to get the same thing.
I'll tell you how to predict the future is to create it, you know, and you can either create it from the emotions of the past and create the same future, or you create something different.
Right.
With intention.
With possibility, with purpose, with intention, with intuition, and focusing on possibility. It's what's possible for me in life, instead of fearing the future and what could go wrong because of what's happened in our past. Getting into our heart by removing those emotions on the nervous system and opening up the full power of the heart. So the heart tells the brain that we're in faith and possibility. Mm-hmm. We're focused on potentials and possibility that exist in, you can call it the spiritual realm, the quantum field, that God's purpose and creator spirit has for you. And when we focus on that, that's what's so beautiful. And everyone can recognize that in their lives. Everything you have right now was something that you imagined and thought possible. And we overlook those things and we take those things for granted. But we need to have gratitude for those things and realize that most things, when you let go and you step back, most things in everyone's life right now worked out better than they could have imagined. Mm-hmm. Because imagination is so powerful, but it's limited depending on our neural baseline and what we've taught our heart, or especially heart rate variability, and our brain to believe and think, right? And so the more we open up the heart, the more we remove those emotions on the nervous system, remove that stress from the body, the more the heart opens up, the more the heart tells the brain, that we're in a state of peace and safety, now we can imagine possibility. And when we start increasing our imagination, we start to increase possibility. And when you increase possibility, you increase potentials. And when you increase potentials, everything's available, right?
Yep.
You go back to, Back to the Future.
I don't know. Where are you going?
George McFly.
Yeah.
George McFly tells Marty you can have anything you put your mind to.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Shout out to Back to the Future. But we literally can have anything we put our mind to, but it takes being in that emotional state first to increase that imagination from that frontal cortex, increase that purpose, increase that intention, so we can start envisioning possibility and imagining possibility. There's such a powerful practice, like a vision board.
Mm-hmm.
We just we'll use we call it Heart's Desire, but it's a more effective tool because we start using
kind of like a vision board in action.
Yeah, in vision board in action, we start using imagination and envisioning with elevated emotion and starting to really paint that picture or create that movie for our lives and how we want it to go. And once you start imagining how you want things to go and you have high heart rate variability and it's opening up the heart center, which will open up the higher cognitive functions in the brain centers, now you're cooking with so much gas. Mm-hmm. Now you're using the most effective energy possible to create in this life. But that's why heart rate variability is so important.
Yep.
You have low heart rate variability, you have lower brain function.
Absolutely.
You have lower heart rate variability, you have, higher biological aging. That stress is wreaking havoc on the nervous system. We just want to get everyone out of that. We want to get everyone into a heart coherent state and a high heart rate variability. So most of the day, we're creating from our wants, wishes, and desires.
Not from past experiences
Not
that we
from,
don't want to repeat, but we're headed right for.
Not from a negative focus, right? Is I don't want this to happen, and I hope that doesn't happen. It's the age-old analogy of skiing down the mountain. Mm-hmm. Don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. You're going to hit the tree.
You're headed right for
You got a high probability of hitting the tree because that's what your focus is. But if you shift that focus and say, hey, I may not be good at skiing or snowboarding, but I want to make it to halfway down the hill. I want to make it down to the bottom of the hill.
Rather than where I don't want to go.
It's just we've conditioned and tuned the nervous system, heart, and brain to focus on what we don't want. I don't want anxiety, and I don't want depression, and I don't want frustration. Instead of saying, I want peace. I want possibility. I want calm and ease and joy. I want love and gratitude. That's what I want.
And we want to teach you that. We want to teach you how to get into that state to create that for yourselves. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're here talking about this stuff, because we know it works. We've done it ourselves, and we've helped many, many people. I mean, we're still a work in progress. It's not like we've arrived, but as we have implemented these things, our life, it looks vastly different.
Yeah. I mean, we still get, there's still frustrations. There's still worries. There's still fears, but I would say we shift out of that very quickly.
And for the most
overall,
part,
I would say we're very, very happy and very, very grateful, loving, caring. And that's what we focus on, a large majority of the day. And that's it makes life so peaceful. Mm-hmm. And that's what I seek. I love being in peace. I love being happy. I love being, I love showing care and generosity to other people. I love showing compassion to people. But that first has to start with self.
And I just like to have fun.
Yeah, which is a derivative of all of those elevated emotions, right?
No, I'm just kidding. I love peace too. Those are my two driving core motives in the people code. I'm a split 50-50, white and yellow, peace and fun. So I don't, nowhere in there is there stress or conflict or any of that. I don't want anything to do with it. No, but that's what we teach. That's what we want to continue to talk about, because that's what we know works. So,
yeah. So bottom line, we want high heart rate variability. How do we do that? Is we remove the emotions that are trapped in the nervous system that prevents higher heart rate variability, the conditioned emotional responses that we've conditioned our nervous system, hearts and brains into feeling. So that's our neural baseline, but we remove those emotions. So it frees up that space in the subconscious. Then we train the heart through our heart coherent practice or heart coherent practices, because there's several different techniques that we teach. And we teach the heart to get into high heart rate variability. What does that look like? Well, very quickly, I want to call this out. 46% decrease in anxiety in a handful of weeks. Like, that's incredible.
That's huge.
A lot of people, there's a lot of anxiety right now. I think, COVID actually amped that up, right? Dumped a lot of gas on that, is the unknown. And so, a 46% decrease in anxiety very quickly, a 56% decrease in depression very quickly. Like, we can train we can train our heart, nervous system, and brain really quickly.
With the proper tools. And then we can have that sustained emotional change. But yes, high heart rate variability will equate to the peaceful states people are searching for. Amen.
But that's the show today. Thanks for listening. We appreciate the support and the love that we've received. Have a great day.